You can check our website out, and that has links to everywhere you want to find us. Brotherhood
that's easy.
Can you not?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I've apologized 3 times now. Fuck you. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, Reading A Storm of Swords. As always, I'm your host, Zach, and sitting here next to me, my brother Nate.
That's me. I'm Nate.
It's been a hot minute.
It's been a little minute.
A little hot minute.
You know, we're busy fellas.
We've been suddenly, unexpectedly busy. We in Southern California are dealing with a sudden outcropping of Delta variant.
Yeah.
And
idiots.
So Nate and I, of course, have been keeping regular precautions and doing so with Nate's kiddos as well and making sure that everyone's safe.
And somehow Zach has still managed to land a new job and begin doing that.
Technically 2 new jobs in this period since last you've heard from us and now.
But one was straight up corporate America trying to take advantage of bullshit, and it was absolutely insane. So
for the first time in my life, I put my foot down and demanded better and got it for once, so that was cool. But the unexpected transitions made it very hard to meet out some time to record, and we hated it because we missed you guys. And so we're back.
We're here. And
it's been a good little bit, but the last episode where you joined us was Samwell 2. Samwell 2 saw the end of Jeor Mormont's life at Craster's as the Brothers of the Night's Watch, in their panic, in their hunger, and in their exhaustion, decided to find and raid the secret larder that Craster may or may not have had, found out he did have, and kill him. And when Mormont opposed that, killed Mormont and any of the others that were true Brothers of the Night's Watch. Sam was beseeched by some of the women at Craster's hut to take Gilly and the baby and go someplace warm because the brothers are coming, which means the White Walkers. But this episode, we're reading Arya 6.
Arya 6, man.
So last we had left Arya. Arya has been with the Brotherhood, who are taking her to meet Lord Berric Dondarrion when, at the Stony Sept, I believe, they meet the huntsman, who is fond of catching people and putting them in crow's cages till they fucking die. And it was during this, Arya came into contact with these people and showed them some mercy by giving them water, upon discovering that they were indeed wolves. Stark men, Northerners, and she had some issues with that, took some issues with that, of course, because these are people that she's viewing as the good guys.
And as real as her life has gotten over the last, year long it's been that she's been bouncing around, she still hasn't seen, or she's chosen to ignore the savagery that they're bringing
right,
down.
That war brings out, yeah.
And so there's discussion. She overhears some talk that Lady Catelyn herself released Jaime Lannister from Riverrun. Nonsense.
And doesn't want to believe that. But then the next morning, the most interesting of captors is brought in as Sandor Clegane the Hound has, and it's not really specifically explicitly said, but we as rereaders know it to be the Hound. And Arya thanks the gods because finally one of her prayers has been answered.
Yeah, he's in captivity.
So we open this chapter in a very, very creepy location. A hollow hill with walls of stone and soil and huge white roots that twist through them.
And Arya's hooded.
Yeah, right. To, any good secret society is gonna... So question number 1, what the fuck is this place?
Weirwood farm?
Because as they come in, people begin to emerge from between the roots, and it's very creepy. And
yeah, I've decided that out on the Isle of Faces, it's how around Christmas time they get the Christmas tree farms, or you go and pick your Christmas tree. That's what the Isle of Faces is. It's where you go and choose your new weirwood tree.
Just a grove of weirwoods.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that face looks much more like the Tully. So let's bring that one down to their place, and then. Nope, that's definitely some Bolton-looking face in that tree. I choose this one. Can we load this one up onto the carriage, please?
So,
I don't know what the fuck this is, though.
In extreme Bloodraven imagery, Arya also notes that as these people are emerging, where the roots in the back sort of form a natural stairway, sits a man almost lost in the tangle of weirwood, and it's hard to make him out or see him. We know this is Berric Dondarrion. But this is exactly almost similar to how Bloodraven is found when Bran comes upon him in the weirwood tangle. And
now, do we think that... Because I've never considered, I don't think, Berric Dondarrion as a a mirror or an opposite of Bloodraven himself. Yeah, definitely a representative of the Lord of Light in some capacity.
Well, that's why you don't see him as a mirror for Bloodraven, because Bloodraven is the three-eyed raven, and this is Rolor shit. So what the fuck is going on?
Even that, like the two sides of the same coin,
Sure.
I just don't quite see him. I never had seen...
Why would you? Like, it's...
Right.
Bloodraven is in the frigid north.
But
He
I mean, I've
seems-
never seen him at that level.
Yeah.
Like, where Bloodraven's this mystical figure. Granted, I suppose Berric Dondarrion
seems to
should be
equate
considered
it to
that, but...
godlike capabilities, if that's what Bloodraven is capable
Right, if that's
of.
what's being alluded to here, that he is a rival, then... Or if he's not, his successor...
Or at least Bloodraven or whoever sets up, the aesthetic of the three-eyed raven is trying to emulate this Rolor. Now, since we read this chapter a good long while ago, I've read it since to prepare for actually recording, but that's been the thing that I've been sitting on is, where are they and why does this place exist? And, like, what is this imagery here meant to symbolize? Because this... Obviously, you and I aren't the fucking first people or the only people to point this out or notice this, but what exactly is George trying to tell us by saying and this is so cult-like, this whole fucking chapter.
Yeah, for sure.
Just skeeves me out. Even though the Brotherhood aren't that bad yet. They aren't under Stoneheart's brutal... Let's just fucking kill everyone.
Right, it's not lemming.
There is a
Cloak and
sense
the
of
Hound
honor
song.
among thieves.
Yeah.
You almost feel a little more Robin Hood than, Kingswood Brotherhood or shit like that.
Brave companions.
Right, and so it's this... but here it feels culty as shit. And when Gendry asks, what is this place? Lem answers him, an old place, deep and secret, a refuge where neither wolves nor lions come prowling.
So clearly it's been used before. For how long and by whom?
Children of the Forest?
That's the only thing I can
That's
think.
the vibe here.
It 100% at least has to have Children of the Forest origins.
Because I think it's super interesting that we get this one, and I've never put this together until this chapter. We get this one. We get this scene first from Arya.
But then Cat afterwards?
Well, no, and then Bran afterwards.
Oh, right.
Like, this is almost exactly the way people are creeping out are the children coming out of these different caves and shit in the cavern system that Bran is in. The Weirwoods literally twisting and snaking and branching, forming stairs or platforms or natural benches. Like, it's almost the exact scene of Bran and them walking into the cavern under the big Weirwood in the north. We just get it 2 fucking books earlier through Arya.
Right.
There's one of these in Westeros. So why the fuck isn't Bloodraven here?
Or maybe this is where Bran... And does that... I want to say, does that mean that the Isle of Faces might have something similar and there's like a grip of these? And so he
does every Weirwood have a secret refuge underneath it? Is there one under the God's Eye?
Because that's what I'm wondering
in Winterfell?
Did they take secret tunnels down under the lake and ended up they're underneath the Isle of Faces right now?
Right.
Like, how deep, how long have they been going through these caverns, and does it work the same down there?
Right, there's a skip. We
tunnels?
lose a little time here. We're not really sure how long Arya's blindfolded.
So what we know is that they're in the Riverlands. They were
Right.
down by the Stony Sept, technically.
They are
off to the
technically
side.
just a few miles, well, maybe a few hundred miles. It's kind of hard to tell by the map here. Away from the God's Eye. They are very close to the God's Eye with Stony Sept.
And so if they were at Stony Sept, did some traveling, got blindfolded, maybe there's paths or tunnels that led to
the island.
They're currently underneath the God's Eye.
Do you think that's what this?
I think that we're gonna look stupid if it's all revealed during the next chapter when Arya's leaving. But potentially this could be the or at least a root system connected to it. Maybe
it's too, the imagery is too intense. The ambiguous, mysterious answer that Lem gives. It just seems to be tied to the Children of the Forest. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the entrance to the secret way.
I was going to say, at the same time, I could also see it
lake.
absolutely not being under the lake, but just because I know there were a lot of people who thought in the show there was some drawings in Dragonstone that John found.
That John drew.
That they were very, conveniently placed.
Yeah.
I think clearly, again, one more thing that Martin did better is showing that the children were always here, and like
Right,
it's
they
been
have a
told, like
presence
that's
everywhere.
been
Right,
stated,
yeah.
like that they were originally in
Well,
here,
right,
and then they got
on
chopped
our
down, and
Winter sample chapters, you and I shat a brick. If you don't want to hear about sample chapters, skip ahead a couple seconds here. But when we read about the Aryan, and they were in Dorne even. Like, they were
children,
like,
right.
And obviously they shattered the armor Dorne. But, like, to actually have Aryan going into one of these.
Right.
One of
Seeing
these
these
little
types of deals.
refuge.
Yeah.
Like, are there drawings? And then into the next line, Arya notes how big the cave is. It's super spacious. But Martin makes sure to tell us there are tons of tunnels branching out, going probably miles.
So we're also going to get a ton of people coming and flooding in for this fight.
There's a connectedness here. It very much so almost seems to me, especially in this light with this band of outlaws that are taken from the rich and given to the needy. It almost feels very like Freedom Trainy, like
so
Underground Railroad.
I don't want
like,
to be the nerd one to go here, but it's completely Underdark in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
there's just a whole
sub-city.
Sub-system of everything interconnected. Like,
but it very much so makes me wonder is how much are they like working with or getting answers from or directions from the Children of the Forest or any of that northern influence, because it affects everyone. Jaime Lannister sleeps on a fucking stump of a weirwood and has trippy ass dreams here in a couple chapters. Like, it affects the people around it. There is no way these people are here and aren't.
With that very much in mind, the Jaime Lannister stuff. To play devil's advocate here, what if none of this here is real at all, and this is just a very close to the surface? They're actually birch trees, and it just has the appearance of werewoods to give it that creepy vibe.
Sure.
And the Brotherhood currently is just, it's very much red herring.
A mockery of it almost.
No, like there's not actually anything here. Somehow we've got a couple of us, Thoros and Berric, that are doing some
Well, that was
shit.
my other thought is it a manipulation tactic
Is
via
it here to
Berric and Thoros?
Is it them to set
We have a lot
everything
of
up?
Northerners with us, so like but our power comes from Rolor, and we're open about that. We're not saying, old gods of the Weirwood, here's a fucking goat we just slaughtered, we're gonna string its entrails from your branches. They're underneath it, and they're performing fire magic. Like, that seems inherently dangerous, being in a root system lighting fires and doing fire magic. But they are. And so that was my other thought is like, Berric very much so has this presence up here among the roots. Is that just sort of to get that I'm a little bit more in charge?
And that is even inherent of the imagery when like Ned is sitting up on the throne.
Sure, yeah.
When he was giving the directive to Berric to
guys
go
the orders,
and
right.
Serve for me. Now he's sitting higher above everybody else, casting these directives out and leading these people in the way that Ned did, not just as the front man, and still as the front man, but...
So Greenbeard points out to where Tom of Seven Strings stands talking to a man that Arya just cannot believe is Thoros of Myr. She remembers him as being fat and smooth, but now he's droopy and gray. And
I love this. He looks terrible.
Right.
But he looks like he's been on the road. Is it
living. That he's been on the road, or is it the toll of magic?
And I think that as well. We always see that Melisandre's super drained when she's performed crazy.
Real magic,
real
not
magic,
her parlor
right.
tricks.
Right. And so, I definitely think that it's draining him as well. And I like that Greenbeard calls him a wizard.
Is that is that the cautionary tale here? Is that... Oh, shit, almost dropped my notebook. Is that Thoros looks like shit? Like, this isn't good for either
I don't think
Thoros or Berric Dondarrion.
I think it's going to go hand in hand in explaining Melisandre and what's going on with her aging process. Maybe Mel isn't old at all. Maybe it's draining her and giving her that appearance, and Thoros is well on his way to... He's using all this resurrection magic as opposed to birthing magic. It's life and death in its own manner.
Yeah.
And so he's going... Maybe this is the point where Martin's kind of alluding to, hey, if he's casting this stuff and he's aged this quickly, because it's been 18 months, no more than 2 years, maybe since Ned gave his
directive. Yeah,
like to have aged that much isn't crazy.
No,
yet.
not when you're on the road.
I think this is definitely something to keep our eyes on right now. Now that we're seeing him,
Arya
we're traveling
is
with him.
stupefied by it. She can't believe it's the same man. Like,
right.
That's what jumped out at me. Arya's been on the road herself. She knows what happens to men on the road. So it's beyond that. It's not just this, oh yeah, he's been traveling with this band fucking during a war right now, like 6 kingdoms in open rebellion, yada, yada, yada. No, she's kind of like, holy shit, Thoros. Like, damn. And then, so that also kind of makes me wonder with...
So again, the wizard thing with Greenbeard.
Right.
Do you think that's...
That's to what he's doing.
But nothing to do with Sam? Because Sam very much so wants to be a wizard.
I think that we're getting into the approximation now. Yeah, this is what Thoros can do. And to any commoner or normal everyman, he's restoring someone back to life every time.
You think Sam will ever attain something on this level?
I think Sam will be more Marwyn the Mage because, and that's where I was going with it here, I only can think of Miri Mazdor, which is only death can pay for life. And
I was thinking
this has happened, 6-7 times now? Like, that's a lot of life to be paying for with death. And so, like, I understand Berric is, and George has talked about this a little bit himself, that he's sort of the fire white, which is an interesting,
that he's
super
not
interesting.
Quite necessarily.
He's losing bits of himself, and that's super important in all discussion with Berric.
That's the life that's being
I
gifted?
think Thoros is getting it worse. I think Thoros is straight up killing himself
to grant life to these people.
To do it, and we learned that Berric's return is fucking meaningless. He exists to give Catelyn the kiss of life.
Right.
So Thoros is throwing away his shit for Berric Dondarrion, his friend, his bro. We learn here they're fucking. These two are on the road. They're bros. They're Stannis and Davos in it. Like, they're close. He's doing it because he doesn't want to continue doing this without Berric Dondarrion leading them. It's a selfishness that made him find his God.
That's what's scary about Catelyn.
And so, it's all for Catelyn now all of a sudden. And
it's almost...
Thoros is like,
so
fuck.
What's funny about that whole situation, it's weird that, we've invested so much time into this series, and I'm only now vocalizing that, like, they were directed where they are by Ned, and now it's the wife that's leading them. And just that, like, to really think about that, but how...
The difference.
How twisted
in the
warped.
goals.
Because she would have been all right if she had been along with them and, like, leading them from the start as Catelyn. She would have made some probably dumb mistakes, as she did.
As she does.
But and not in, like, a negative way towards her.
A grieving mother, right, yeah.
And so it's interesting to think of what what it ends up being.
Yeah, I think the Brotherhood are super important just in this twist. We get a group that from the beginning, like, fuck yeah, man. Like, as far as the people Arya's encountered, they're far from the worst, and, like, they are people we know. Harwin, now Berric and Thoros that we met in Game of Thrones, and Lem we're coming to know, Angai, who is this sick badass archer. We've got Gendry here, who's also like, yeah, they're outlaws, but they've got more honor than any of the other fucks we've met along our way. So Martin is telling us that our POVs, at least, like them. Arya, it doesn't trust them intrinsically because Arya has her issues that she's dealing with, but there's a likability here, and for that to get so fucking twisted by Lady Stark is so interesting, and so I feel like they're going to have such a huge role to play in Winds and maybe beyond. I don't know, their story may end quite abruptly, but the huntsman arrives in with his captive. He had cursed them all back in Stony Sept when they said that they're taking Sandor Clegane to Lord Berric. He fucking wanted to throw him in a crow's cage, but he agreed.
They pointed out because Angai was up in the window with an arrow ready to go.
They don't like the huntsman, but he agreed to take his prize to Lord Berric for judgment. And even bound and hooded, Arya notes that there is a danger in Sandor Clegane. Just in the way he holds himself, which I love, is her studying and sizing people up.
It's very much that chained dog being led into a room.
And Arya takes it in, of like, he's dangerous. He's backed into a corner, and even bound and out of control of the situation.
Yep. So we learn that the huntsman stumbled upon, because of his hounds, a drunken, passed out hound underneath a tree, sleeping off his hangover.
And of course the hound knows Thoros, yet Thoros claims that he is not the false priest that he once was. The Lord of Light has woken in his heart. Many powers once asleep are waking, and forces are moving in the land. I have seen them in my flames. So what was it that awoke in his heart? Was it the first time Berric died, and he said some words, and then all of a sudden Berric came up?
Yeah, now is that...
Was it a spiritual in the flames awakening of, hey, here's your calling, this is what you gotta fucking do?
Because we learned back in Game of Thrones that Berric was just a motherfucker, and Gendry's Tobomot, whatever his name is there, he didn't quite like Thoros, because Thoros just fucking threw on some oil,
priest, right?
lit a fire,
Ruined
his sword on fire, and was, a drunken priest. He did fight honorably at the Battle of Pike, I think it was. Did he run in with
Pike,
with Ned Stark and
his flaming
and all
sword,
doing his cool shit, and Jorah, and
he was shit-faced.
But he wasn't anything special, and then in tournaments everybody knew he was bullshit. He's just the fat drunk, fire sword wielding son of a bitch. Something changed, and like. It depends on how seriously I think he took his red priesthood. Did he go and study at least enough to be conscious of the teachings?
He's a red priest. That's how he is titled, is a red priest.
And so I would imagine he at least has that base knowledge.
Thoros of Myr. He went to Myr, clearly, and studied. So, like, yeah. He was here on some mission, and I can't remember, because in the show I remember Melisandre telling him, you were ordered to turn Robert away from the false idols of the Seven and turn him to the Lord of Light. And I wonder if I don't know if we get that confirmation that that's what he was sent to do, and he fucking failed. But right, I think he was a priest at one point. Maybe he believed it. Maybe it was because there was wine offered at the church. But
and so, yeah, I definitely feel as though, and I guess it could be a heavy reach, but because he was directed by the Hand, who was sitting as the king, there's that king's magic, that lies in the king's blood. And so when Berric, who was specifically directed, he's a champion, he's the Fire White. So R'hllor was like, yeah, brah, your magic he's just whispering a prayer of death or rebirth, or you're going to be reborn in the light of the Lord. And then he actually was fucking reborn, and he's like, oh shit. And he's like, you said the real words. So.
Yeah, so it was probably Berric's first death.
I would imagine. So that's when the magic actually responded to him. Or he was able to, I don't want to say activate it, but like it was actually working.
The Hound laughs at them all, calls them swineherds, and this is where Berric dramatically entered, saying, yes, we are swineherds and farmers and nobodies and commoners. And he reminds them that they set out originally from King's Landing to hunt the Mountain, his brother. And this is where we get the description of Berric, that he looks rough. He's got the bald spot over the left ear from having his head smashed in. He's got one eye missing and a dark black ring around his neck from being hung.
And when Hound calls him by his name, even Arya's like, holy, with him too, like, oh shit, that is Berric Dondarrion. And like, again, she wasn't there, but she saw him. We saw Berric during the tournament of was it the naming of the hand, or was it? Yeah. And so we got a good description because Jane and Sansa were wooing over him a little bit.
Arya recalls that. She's like, yo, Jane Poole loved this dude, and she wouldn't love him now. Whoops. And yeah, Berric says that Robert is slain, but his realm remains, and we defend her. And the Hound is like, yeah, fuck all of that nonsense, and calls them the brave companion. What brave companions you are.
That offends some people.
Oh, yeah, that gets pretty much everybody in the room pissed. And the Hound then tells them that if they mean to kill him, to do it. Just get it the fuck over with instead of this bitching. And the Huntsman brings up the rapes and child murders of Sharer in the Mummers Ford. And the Hound says, I wasn't that either, so dump your dead kids.
He goes through and disputes every claim that they try to, you did this.
Prince Aegon and Princess Rhaenyra are brought up, and he says, is being born a Clegane a crime? And somebody answers
my brother did that.
Murder is a crime, so he asks, who? Who did I murder?
And people tried listing off, and he's like, that was at the directive of the king. Who you
or just Lannisters, or Lannister men going to towns and sacking them, something he had nothing to do with.
And
but
finally,
then some of them start getting mentioned that are actually nailed on the head. But they basically say, you served the Lannisters. And he said, once, is each man in their service guilty for the crimes of the other? He then tells them that they're all no different from he is anyway, but he just admits what he is, which is a murderer. And then Arya jumps forward.
With Micah.
That Micah was murdered, and the Hound doesn't recognize Arya or the name Micah.
The little sister.
But
until he does.
She tells him, the butcher's boy, Jory said you cut him near in half, and he never had a sword. And he asks her, don't you know you're dead? When he does recognize her.
So good.
But Berric asks if he denies killing this Micah, and the Hound shrugs. He says, I was Joff's sworn shield, and it is not my place to question princes. Besides, Arya's own sister told the tale, the exact same as Joff
Sansa's a liar. Which, she's had some endearing thoughts we've had, I believe, over the last 2 books or so, where we're like, oh, look at her, she's missing her sister. This is one of those times where she scorned her again, which it's been
right.
a little bit.
This is a hot topic subject where Arya is still in much different life circumstances at this point, still, and has no interest in the marrying of a prince, a lord. So she doesn't get that headspace that Sansa was just head over heels and wanted to make things perfect. And so, yeah, she still fucking hates her for it. Got Lady killed, and while it's not Arya's wolf, it did make her have to get rid of Nymeria. Like, it's a hot... I don't blame Arya's scorn here. Yeah, she's kind of right. Sansa's a fucking liar, especially in that moment. And especially in this moment where she's so close to justice. You're not wiggling out by blaming fucking Sansa. Fuck Sansa. She's a liar. We know it. So
there will be a trial by combat.
Yeah, Thoros and Berric go aside to bro huddle and talk it out, but Arya is seething, and she's like, they have to fucking kill him. I've prayed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. They have to fucking kill him. So Lord Berric comes over and says the trial by combat will be conducted. Prove your innocence with a blade, and you shall be free to go. And Arya ain't down for that, because the Hound will fuck shit up with a blade. But the Hound laughs and asks who's going to fight him, and goes pointing around the room, calling them all pansies and shitty fighters.
And Berric steps forward, of course. Who else is going to fight him? And there's complaints about the armor, but that's lost because he calls over for some help from little Squire Ned.
Little Ned. It shakes Arya, hearing, like, so casually, Ned, come here, help me with the armor. But a boy of 10 or 12 and Berric's squire. And Berric looks like shit without his armor. His lance wound shows clearly, and Arya begins to wonder if the Hound is scared, because she thinks he can't die. Like, Berric's fucking badass, man. So, Thoros waits until 3 archers have their arrows trained on Clegane before giving him his sword. And then the huntsman gives the Hound his shield. Ned helps Berric gear up with his. And then they pray, which is the strongest cult vibes ever.
It's very interesting, as we've seen this cult vibe already in Davos's prequel chapter way back when. In Davos's chapter way back when.
The idols of the 7.
And yeah, they say their prayer. I really like the Hound's response to this one, though, where he says, yeah, this cave is dark, but I'm the only terror here. And then they go to fucking town.
Well, Berric draws his sword
lights
and draws it down his palm, lights it aflame, and Gendry quickly whispers a prayer. And the Hound promises that Thoros will be next after he deals with Berric.
So that's really cool that we know Thoros was the wizard or the fighter who lit his sword on fire, but it's Berric's blood that's lighting this one up on fire. And even Gendry, because Arya's like, is that fucking wildfire? And he's like, nah, yo, that's just magic. Like, that's just magic, man. That doesn't happen.
Berric stands calm as still water, Arya notes, and thinks, kill him, please, you have to kill him. And then the Hound charges, and they exchange blows, and the fight is fucking cool. Back and forth, Clegane quickly starts to give ground, but as the Hound shield catches fire, he strikes it off, and then his own sleeve catches, and as the fight progresses, a chant of guilty, guilty, kill him, guilty starts to rise, and Arya begins chanting with all the rest, which is just so fucking creepy.
How quick people fall
just
into
all of it, like under the roots, like in this weirwood tree that may or may not be connected to the children.
It's very Miri Mazdur. You mentioned it earlier, where it's almost like this ritual is happening right now, and it's creepy. Yeah, absolutely. So
the Hound raises his sword above his head with both hands and brings it down with all of his strength. Berric manages to block it easily enough, but the burning sword snaps clean in 2, and the Hound's sword dug down into his neck, cleaving him clean down to the breastbone. And as Sandor falls away, trying to roll his smother the flames on his arm, there's silence, and Arya just thinks of Micah. She knew the Hound was guilty. And as the Hound is pleading for someone to help him, she realizes that he's crying. He's crying like a little baby. Someone help me. I mean, poor dude.
Dude's on fire. He's terrified of fire.
It's pretty insane because you don't really realize how bad he did get burned until a couple, paragraphs from here where the literal skin just sloughs off his arm. But Thoros orders Melly to see to the Hound's burns. And
Arya.
Then Lem and Jack help with Lord Berric and Ned as well. And they carry him off into one of the tunnels. To a specific place?
To go get some Trojan paste.
The huntsman wants to put the Hound in a crow's cage at the Stony Sept, and Arya's down for that. But I think it's Greenbeard says that I bumped the mic.
Don't bump the fucking mic.
Rolor's judged him innocent, so Arya quickly decides to snatch Greenbeard's dagger and spin away. Gendry tries to grab for her, misses. She's always been too quick for Gendry. Fuck out of here. Thomas Sevenstrings is helping the Hound up, but his arm's cracked, flashes red and bleeding elbow to wrist, and he sees her. And he asks, "Do you want me dead that bad? Then do it. It's cleaner than fire." And then some of his flesh falls off his fucking arm, and his knees give out from under him.
So a little funsy thing I thought of here was the way that she got this dagger, and she's running across this room, to me is very, and it's the big fuck you to people who had huge, giant issues with everything to do with the last season, because whatever. And how she went and got the Night King there with the dagger and dropping it. Just how she couldn't quite get there with people that grabbed her. Yeah, she hesitated as well, but that's a big part of it, I think, that hesitation of... She had the opportunity to lunge in there right here in that talking, and then she gets grabbed before she...
because she thinks he deserves to die and says, "You killed Micah, tell him you did." And he says, "I did." Wrote him down, cut him in half, and laughed. Watch them beat your sister, too. Watch them cut your father's head off. And then, Lem comes up and twists the dagger from her hand, and she tells him, "You go to hell, Hound! You just go to hell!" And he has... says a voice, well, barely above a whisper. Not quite. Mine was louder. But Arya turns, and big reveal. Lord Berric is standing there, bloody hand clutching Thoros by the shoulder. And that's the end of Arya. So they went off into some secret fucking tunnel, said some magic words, we assume, and Berric comes limping right back out.
Now, who all went in there with them? Did you check on that and see who came out?
Because Thoros tells Lem and Jack to help him with Lord Berric, and Ned, you'd best come too, he says.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure all of them still reappear after this as well, and so I was making sure that they didn't just fucking...
slit Ned's throat.
Use them like a little, a horse sacrifice, where they're just fucking, bleed them out and then say the prayer.
So, this is bullshit, right? What a bullshit trial by combat. Because...
it's a no-win situation.
Berric just gets to live. The Hound doesn't... There is no justice meted out, because the whole point of a trial by combat is that he who loses is guilty. And, Berric just gets to come back. And so this is one of the most culty feeling chapters, and it's so interesting to me that it comes from this.
It's like jumping them into a gang.
But where some weird,
but in that way, where instead of a 10 versus 1 where you're going to lose, you're going against 1-on-1, a guy he's decent with a sword, but you can't kill him. He can't actually die.
It makes me wonder if Melisandre might have had better luck faring with a smaller group, maybe the small council in King's Landing would have been a better place for her, because with a smaller group, it seems you have much more loyalty and control, and when you're going through these things...
I mean, she is similar with the Florence and...
right, because that's...
Not that they're good. They're not good players
but
or anything.
She's not in the trenches with them.
That.
Thoros is down here, in the mud with his men, whereas she is seen as this divine sort of conduit.
Right, she's a tactician versus...
Well, that's what I think is interesting, is if she consolidated and focused on a smaller group... the amount of influence she would have over that. Seeing this happen time and time again, it builds this loyalty, this camaraderie of it's us against the fucking world, with our tag team duo of has died a lot and Sir brings him back. Like,
Sir brings him back. I like that one.
but anyway, let's convene our small council. We'll get inductees and some listener inductees.
We return for the small council.
I didn't think we'd fucking get here. Jesus. Nate took forever to click fucking record. Going over stupid shit. Anyway, we've got inductees. For my inductee, I'm not even asking what his is, because fuck him. My inductee's going to Gendry, because Gendry, I think, he's not going to engage with me all for this inductee now, because he's looking at me. But Gendry, I think, is great, because he is the audience through this. He goes from just being a blacksmith's apprentice. Ned Stark, Hand of the King, comes down and it's like, hey. Jon Arryn before that, Hand of the King, is like, hey. And so all this attention, then all of a sudden he's like, nah, get the fuck out of here. Presumably by Varys, the spider, who's like, get the fuck out of here. You're going to the Night's Watch, where he meets like Arya and they buddy up. But then finds out that Arya is this Lady Lord's daughter. And he's like, oh shit, that's cool. And then like all of a sudden people are on the road trying to kill him. And then the Night's Watch is all killed and slaughtered. So he runs off with Arya. They get captured by the Brotherhood because they're like, hey, we're going to bring her to her parents and people folk, the Starks, at River Run. And then they end up in this fucking cave where all of a sudden there's fire magic and people coming back. And Gendry's just like, brah. What? What's up?
First of all, that was a terrible inductee.
That's a great inductee.
Second,
Gendry has no, like, Gendry is this little simple dude who's just trying to, you know, blacksmith. And now all of a sudden he's watching fucking fire swords and, like, whispering prayers, being like, oh, fuck, this is some culty shit that I'm probably going to join, because what other better fucking alternative do I have? And then, like, Berric Dondarrion's just like, hey.
Are you going to... So, yes, he's a good analogy for the audience. You're ranting about Gendry a little.
I like
right
it. I just think it's such an interesting perspective to see
that he's
this
kind of
chapter
just chilling
from.
in the back
like,
with this,
like even
oh, fuck,
Arya
fuck.
has a little less to be surprised about in this fucking chapter than Gendry does. She's having crazy wolf war dreams and shit. Like, she's been kind of trained by a faceless man. Like, she's seen some shit. Gendry's just like, yo, I want to just blacksmith. Like, and now he's got a flaming sword and came back from the dead. Like, that's cool, I guess. So, Gendry.
Okay.
What's yours?
Well, now I'm self-confident about mine.
Self-confident?
Mm-hmm. And so, because yours was just, okay. I'm going to stick to the point here, and it's going to be Sir Brings Him Back, Thoros of Myr.
You're welcome for that title.
And I'm gonna take that from forever now. I think Sir Brings Him Back is about as good as it gets for Thoros of Myr. And the evolution of this man, that, yeah, we've seen, obviously there's an evolution to Berric as well, but, you know, we'll stick with one of the
Berric's is on the nose.
Right.
Like,
to know he went from this absolute drunkard, and I'm sure he's plastered 90% of the time still, but he's limiting it. He's aware of what he needs himself to be capable of, what he's doing. He's seen the light, and so probably giving up the heavy drinking, because he's got to cast some spells, yo. I love hearing the difference in how shitty he looked before, but now how he looks different shitty. He's like side shitty instead of up or downgrading. He's just a different type of shitty look, and it's more befitting to him, I think, as a red priest. Like, he's kind of growing into that aspect as opposed to the young drunk.
well, right.
Party guy.
It's like, take me for example. There's like Pandemic looking like shit, where it's just, you know, I'm in shitty clothes, I don't feel like changing, haven't showered. And now there's Today Me, which is like, I've got a job and I'm working, so I just look exhausted all the time and miserable, looking like shit. There's this,
it's an
he's
accomplished,
working, he's out there
fulfilling
doing
his
stuff.
role, like he's doing
Right.
what he's
But
meant
he
to
still
do. He
looks
found
like
his
shit.
calling, but he puts in a lot of fucking
Just
work.
Just like
man.
everyone
He's
in
just
their
feeling like a
fucking,
bag
every
of shit.
adult, whatever you're doing for your life is draining the life out of you. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one too.
But yeah, so Thoros of Myr.
And then we have some emails that have been sitting in our inbox for quite a while, and we love you guys. We know you expected this Arya episode a while ago, and so thank you for sending in all the inductees. From Karen, who says that she's got a lot of LOLs in this chapter. She just LOL'd Arya reacting to Berric. And LOL, who is Rolor? Like, when Arya just completely doesn't get it. But her inductee, Berric Dondarrion. We get to see him die and then come back, putting truth to the rumor that the night is dark and full of terrors. And I really, like, what a good twist on that. Like, he emerges from one of these side tunnels. Like, the tunnel's pretty fucking dark and apparently can bring people back to the dead, which I don't know about you, terrifies me.
Trojan paste travels.
Stop with
It's
Trojan
a delicacy.
paste. Anyway, we've got others.
We also have an inductee from the wonderful Kristen, who on the private Facebook group put up her drawing that's also got the time elapse of it.
Go check it out.
That whole thing. It's cool.
Cool.
On the private group, and so go find her on. I'll see if I can find that and link. I don't know.
Sure.
It's in the private group. We should try and get that posted on the open one, the Facebook page. And I'll see about doing that because it's pretty fucking cool, and so that's pleasant.
Tweet it to us so we can fucking share it.
Yeah, we can retweet that shit and all that.
'Cause it's
jazz.
cool.
Like, it's fucking sick. It's the three-eyed raven. He's awesome. She put in a big old email, and we enjoyed reading the whole thing. There's a few specific points I wanted to mention. She did note the line that George wrote that the earth drank Berric's blood, and I just think that's very poignant in this particular moment with Trojan paste being brought up, and not necessarily the joking Trojan paste super theory, but like to take the blood of a man who did quote unquote die there.
How does he still have blood, dude?
Right, and he loses a part of himself, so that's why he loses a part of himself each time, is because there's less of him to contain the blood that he's lost, so he just kind of heals the parts that he can withhold.
Dude, yeah, it's a weird thing. I definitely think there's something to giving that personification to the ground, drinking his blood. Like, that's an intense...
It's almost a very specific...
Sure, I would believe George sat there for, like, the earth absorbs his blood. Nope, not dark enough, not the
it's a creature. It drinks its blood. It's thirsty for the blood. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so she's also always, as we know, a big fan of the Hound, and so she just loves the
Sandor
chapters.
Simp.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's great.
And then she also mentions Arya, similar to Karen, yelling at the Hound about some shit.
Poor Micah.
But her inductee is the only late great Robert Baratheon.
So get more!
Who, for all his faults, inspired this group of ragtag individuals, for all their faults, to fight in his name long past his death. We talk about Ned's heavy influence long past his death. Well, Robert's got some, too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
The loyalty that precedes death, and we see it a lot in Ned, but it exists in other characters. We'll learn about fucking Tywin as well. Little Kevin Lannister kind of makes his life about what Tywin did when he was alive, when Tywin finally passes.
Kevin gets stabbed.
This happens a lot. It's just interesting to see it with a group of men. Like,
at the end of dance.
Yes, he does.
Shink,
so,
yes.
There is. I don't think there's an inductee in this one, but we did get an email from Amanda. And Amanda basically just wanted to write in because she is a long-time listener, but a first-time emailer. So we wanted to shout that out. She just basically said she loves the show. Thank you.
Why?
She calls it quality content, which I don't know if you get that with Nate. She looks forward to everything we put out. Again, sorry for the lapse. And can't wait for the next part of Dunk and Egg. Good news on that front. We'll get to that in a couple minutes here. Onto her email. She recently started listening to the podcast from the beginning, and I'm on a cat chapter where she talks about the origin of Jon's mother and mentions the rumor of a Shara Dane. Yeah. And I have always thought, she says...
Holy shit, that's early.
What would Ned have done if Jon looked like Rhaegar? This leads me to assume that Ned created the rumor about Ashara as a failsafe. Maybe even Ashara was in on it. I don't know. It's a cool thought. And maybe something you've even heard before. But what do you think? So, I haven't heard that before. But I really like that train because that thought of what if Jon looked more like Rhaegar, that like lit a fire in my brain where I was like, oh shit.
So
that would have sucked for Ned.
Maybe it wasn't with you, but I thought I've discussed that where this whole thing occurring the way it did was only an option because he didn't come out looking like Rhaegar.
He looks so much like
If he had any Targaryen traits, look at young Griff. They would have it's
had
dyeing
to dye
hair.
his hair.
Like that would for your entire life from the day you were like Ned took over. And so I think that it would have been a drastically different situation had he come out.
So did like
Targaryen
little
traits.
Ned Stark, because we do know that at least historically it's been reported. It seemed Barristan the Bold and Ned Stark both seemed to have a little crushy do on Ashara Dane. Did Ned, like, out his biggest sort of secret in the hopes of creating a failsafe rumor?
It's also possible because there's rumors that there's other bastards down there from the Dane area and shit. He stopped by to bring back the sword. And, like, there was conversation, we're led to believe, between Ashara and Ned.
Yeah, she threw herself from the tower shortly after.
Supposedly. And depending on what that was, a lot, it's assumed to believe it was because of the death of her brother. But was it based on not being able to handle the knowledge of the Rhaegar, like the whole situation, the whole war occurring for nothing, and losing her brother, and he's holding the child of the, prince who you've been, all sorts of just wild, crazy shit. And so I definitely could believe that Ned, of all people, so that way it helps get some closure for Cat. Oh, the one person he did it with was a high lady, first of all, not some random whore in their world.
Right.
And she's dead. Don't have to worry about him ever pining or wanting to go back to her or leaving me for her or any kind of nonsense like that. He can go south. I don't have to worry about him cheating with her. So I could see it being something he implanted to...
Here's my tinfoil. Ned and Ashara decided to come up with this lie. Well, not come up with, but Ashara decided to brunt some of the pressure of it with Ned, and perhaps spread this sleeping together rumor. And then she slipped. She slipped to somebody. She let loose that Jon Snow was a Targaryen and couldn't believe it, couldn't handle it, couldn't live with it, and then tossed herself.
Do you think there's somebody out there that's just got the knowledge?
Littlefinger.
Littlefinger?
No, I mean, but potentially anybody. Like, I think that'd just be an interesting route to take of, like, They did set this up as a failsafe. If anyone asks, we fucked one night, and I understand, my lady, that
do you think that there's any potential that Ashara Dane holds counsel under the sea down with some, the places that Patch face?
It depends on if she actually launched herself from the tower and why. I think matters.
It's so crazy.
Hopefully that's a satisfactory little. She also wanted to ask about the Grand Northern Conspiracy. She's interested.
I emailed
you
her
did.
the link
They responded, but she's interested in understanding this more. I think anyway, I would say on this topic that, like, depending on Wynn's release, and now that Nate and I should be back on a normal schedule for release, I think the Grand Northern Conspiracy is a topic that I just want to do a fucking episode on, my guy.
At some point we might need to.
On big theories.
So
if we have time between when we finish Dance and Wynn's still coming out, if that's the case, then I think, we'll probably go through and cover some of the major topics, including Jojen Paste, Roose is a fucking vampire, all of those big theories, and explore them a little more, dig down. And the Grand Northern Conspiracy, I absolutely subscribe to. I am a fan
That'd
of.
probably be a big long
and
episode,
right,
or a
I would want
multi-part.
to. I would want to do that one right and do research.
But we don't want to brainstorm on that on air.
So thank you, Amanda, for writing in.
With that, you had some Dunkin' Egg news.
Dunkin' Egg news is mainly that Nate and I are back on the grind, and that
expect that soon.
We have plans to knock out the next episode, which again we're breaking those up just based on kind of feel and vibe because we don't want anyone to drag on too long.
So if you would like to join those people who are enjoying the Dunkin' Egg series, go to patreon.com/without manners, subscribe.
Can't tell me to fucking do something and rush me through it.
I didn't rush you.
We take a break and you come back.
Breathe.
So unprofessional.
Just breathe.
Fuck.
Just breathe. The fact that we were harmonized.
I don't like you.
Great.
Go do your thing.
That. So you can also check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Brotherhood Podcast. If you go to the Patreon, you get the private Facebook group where that's pretty fun. You can check our website out, and that has links to everywhere you want to find us.
Brotherhood that's easy.
Can you not?
Sorry. Yeah, I've apologized 3 times now. Fuck you.
BrotherhoodWithout.com is our website where there's a lot less fuck yous, and it's mostly managed by me, so we know it's done correctly. And you can also email us, withoutmannersbrotherhood@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts.
Yeah,
you can go
cool.
to ratethispodcast.com/brotherhood, and that'll just send you links to, not send you, don't worry, you're not getting random fucking email blasts all over your face, which is disgusting. It just shows you a page where you can select your podcast platform of choice and leave a review on that one particular
Hey, guess what? We're back recording.
Yes.
And so you can expect regular episodes from us again. Sorry, baby birds. We had to leave you hanging for a bit, but we're back now.
And the
So
same old big news.
So next episode, we're going to be recording, we're going to be listening and talking about Catelyn 4.
Yes.
Hoster's gone, man.
Mr. Tully.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, and Edmure makes a fool of himself.
Right,
it's going to be some fun.
There will be a wedding proposal.
Yeah.
And Edmure makes him fool of himself. I am going to be especially
It's going to be good.
ripping
It's
him a
gonna be
new
good.
anus.
So look forward to some of that.
Edmure
I know, Renly rage, Edmure rage, whatever. Younger sibling rage.
Interchangeable rage.
We are also, I just said, again. I hate that word.
We have a fuck ton of inductees sitting in our
Emails,
in our email.
yeah.
So those of you that have got us inductees, thank you. Otherwise, if you haven't, send us inductees for Catelyn 4. I can't recall off the top of my head who's after that, but it's someone.
He had it written down, I'm sure, but I don't keep track of that
Right.
too far in advance. We will. We still intend to be, because we have our list of guests that would be appearing in future episodes. Some of those episodes are coming upon us. However, pandemic has absolutely hindered a lot of things, so we're hoping to have some of them with us on the upcoming episodes. Not necessarily Kat or the one immediately after, but soon.
Yeah.
And we'll get that to you.
It's great to be fucking back.
Looking forward to it. I think that's about it.
Catch us on the next one.
Yeah, Vala de Harris.
Peace.